Hello students, I am Professor V Ratna, your faculty for Strategic Management course. Today we shall be discussing about environmental analysis for strategic management. If we talk about environment can be defined as an aggregate of all conditions, events and influences that surround and affect any business organization. The environment has a deep impact on the future of the organization. If we talk about the components of the firm's environment, we find that there are three components of the firm's environment. Firm's environment comprises of the internal environment that may be the structure of the organization, the culture that prevails in the organization, and the kind of resources that are there with the organization. Immediately after the internal environment, every organization is a part of an industry. So all those components, all those ingredients that are there into the industry, they comprise of the task environment or the industry environment, often referred to as microenvironment. And finally, all the industries that are operating within a geographical area, they are influenced by a macro environment that may comprise of the political factors, the regulatory factors, the economic factors, the socio-cultural factors, the technological factors, and finally, the natural factors. Now, why is environmental scanning important for the purpose of strategic management? Environmental scanning, it is about monitoring, evaluating and disseminating of information from the external and internal environments to key people within the organization. Now, if these key people do not have the insights about the external and the internal environments, then they would not be able to create the most optimum or the most appropriate strategy for the organization. Environmental scanning is also done to avoid any sort of strategic surprise and manage the long-term corporate health of the organization. More so, there has been positive relationship that has been demonstrated between environmental scanning and the profits of an organization. Means to say that those business organizations which engage into environmental scanning have relatively higher profits in comparison to organizations which do not engage into environmental scanning. Now, as I have discussed, internal environment comprises of all those factors that are within the organization. The scanning of the internal environment results into strengths and weaknesses. The external environment comprises of macro and micro environments, and an analysis of the external environment results into identification of the opportunities and the threats for the organization. Now, if we try to compare between the macro environment and the micro environment, both which are part of the external environment, macro environment are broad-based forces that affect all different industries within a country. Whereas micro environment factors are industry specific. So they may be the suppliers of the industry, they may be the customers of the industry, they may be distribution intermediaries, there may be the competitors of the industry, there may be all those companies which are contemplating to enter into the industry. Now, let's quickly see that why the environmental scanning is important for an organization. I would like to share an example with you. In the mid-1950s, Hindustan Lever Limited, it was Hindustan Lever Limited at that point of time, and their primary business in India was edible oils. Their corporate planning team were able to forecast that in the coming years there will be a shortage of edible oils in India. And the forecast that they made, it came out with pinpoint accuracy. However, the organization Hindustan Lever Limited was able to avert a major collapse of the organization by undertaking diversification in a big way. So it started manufacturing new products, it entered into the personal care business, entered into the home care business, started manufacturing varieties of detergents, bathing soaps, shampoos, oral care products and so. So as you can see in this example, the forecasting of the environment, the analysis of the external environment is of crucial importance for any business organization. Now, as I have already said, that the need for environmental appraisal is to learn about events and trends in the environment. and project the future position of each factor of the environment. All of us have just now seen the kind of impact that COVID-19 had on the entire world. All different business organizations in different countries of the world were absolutely flabbergasted by the turn of events. Most of the countries of the world were into lockdown, and this came as a major strategic surprise for most of the organizations, and they had to think about, rethink about their strategies in a new way. So environmental appraisal is extremely important, and now most of the organizations of the world are again trying to see as to how the COVID-19 impacted world environment, what kind of opportunities and the challenges this environment would be creating for the business organization. Then the environmental appraisal is important to know about the events and trends in the environment and to project the future position of each of the factors of the environment. It also helps to identify the favorable and unfavorable factors of the environment from the firm's view. And finally, to find the opportunities and threats that are embedded in the environment. This was briefly about the environmental factors and their importance for the organization. Now, what are the constituents of the macro environment? Macro environment, as I have said, is more conveniently remembered as a pestle that comprises of the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors. There is another framework that comprises of the different constituents of the macro environment, an acronym in fact, and that is PGDM. So here the political, economic, social, technological, demographic and natural factors are the different constituents of the macro environment that need to be analyzed from the perspective of the organization. The question comes that from where do we get information about the external environmental analysis? One thing that I'd like to share with you, that macro environment is largely uncontrollable and unpredictable. And henceforth, 100% accurate information about the macro environment is difficult to find out. Nevertheless, organizations try to use secondary compiled sources like the reports that are being published by consultancies. They often join hands, companies within the industry may often join hands to come up with a syndicated service that would engage into environmental analysis. Media reports that get published in the media, companies' internal sources that comprise of the corporate planning team. The formal studies are done by universities and higher educational institutions. Then informal sources like forums, conferences where people come and share their views related to what is expected to happen in the future, related to the macro environment is often a very, very important source for external environment analysis. And finally, as we know, that internet is the biggest reservoir of all such information that may be used to analyze and find out what kind of trends are prevailing in the macro environment. Thank you so much.